We're live. We did it again. We're back.
Through another week.
We need to get some Yaz up in here. I need some hype. I'm fucking tired.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am also tired. I was delivered a monster to get me through.
I'm drinking the satanic water.
Oh, the satanic water.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Satan's
I gotta tell you, this stuff is not only delicious and berry tasting,
but I've got to tell you, it's really changed my outlook on life. I have one sip of this, and life just gets more and more meaningless.
I think I just need a throat lozenge. We're back. It's the Modern Relics podcast. I'm Angel. He's Lucky. We're goofing around.
Yeah, we are goofing around. This is one of my favorite times of the week.
Frickin' hello.
I look forward to it. Hello.
Yeah, me too, man. I changed some shit in the office. We were talking about it a little offline. I mostly just moved everything over, like, I don't know, one wall to the next. That's about it. But now we got some artwork going up. I have my America Lives On in You. That's a Pit Boy from Vault 111 in Fallout.
Yep.
That's the cat from The Matrix. That's a Nuka-Cola, also from Fallout. Some Titanfall. That's the car. Yeah. That's the trio.
Alkaline trio.
There it is. It's all backwards. My camera's inverted, so I don't know.
It's not backwards to me. I'm reading it right.
Okay, good.
So, but ultimately, because mine's backwards on my camera, so
yeah.
But when it streams, it flips me.
There we go. It's all happening live. We don't know what's going on. But
that trio that you've got up here in the corner up here, that's we both have that tattoo.
We do, and I've got to be perfectly honest with you. I found this this company recently called Displate, and I got a coupon for a bunch of Displates, and I was like, well, all right. It was like a thing that happened and tangentially through work, and I was like, I'll check it out. What they do is they give you this like paper tape with light adhesive, and you put it on the wall, and then you take a two-sided sticky tape off of a magnet, and you stick that on the tape, so when you peel everything off, it doesn't rip the paint off, and you press it on there and hold it, and then when you're done, you just chuck a metal poster at it, and that's all these are. And I have a bunch, and I have a bunch more coming. I got them cheap, so we're going to do this live.
That's awesome. Oh, we're going on tour.
Sort of.
Oh, okay.
This is Mia Wallace.
Oh, yes, it is.
And I have a bunch of Pulp Fiction stuff coming, which I'm really excited. I have like Jules and Vic Vega and all them dudes. Exciting.
We actually just
sticks to the wall.
It's so great. Those are beautiful.
Yeah.
What a cool concept.
I know. I'm stoked. I was like, this is fucking great. And then these are all matte finish ones. I got some like
put a link in the bio for that one when we're all done.
Yeah. We'll see if they want to be affiliated with this podcast.
I'm just saying. I like cool products, and when I find them, I have a whole. I'm much more analog than digital than you are. So like I have a kiosk in my tattoo station of all the local businesses and stuff that I support.
Yeah.
And I will like, if I really believe in someone's product, I will like, give me a stack of cards and I'll stick them there and I'll promote it like I'm their salesman. Yeah. And it's just because I really like, I like promoting quality work. I like promoting local business. I like promoting that kind of stuff. So when I see something as beautiful as these things are, which is really cool, they're really unique.
Yeah.
In the regard of just even the functionality of them is super cool. So awesome.
If you have, and I have photography, I could probably showcase. I'm a little self-conscious about some of the wild landscape photography I've done. But if you give them a digital portfolio, you can sell your own artwork on Displate, and you get commission for each person that orders an artwork of yours. And so you could get some kickbacks of becoming a Displate family member or whatever. And then they have this thing where like, hey, we're going to plant a tree for every one of these that you buy. So they have a running total of how many millions of trees they've sold or planted. But the cool part is the high gloss ones are like a couple extra dollars. And I got these gorgeous like macro photography shots of cherry blossoms from Japan. And there's a series of 4 of them, and I'm actually going to hang those out in the living room find a good spot because the contrast on the wall I think would look really good. So in here's I'm just dicking around because it's my office, my stream room, and my music making area and all that. So anyway, a long dissertation on my office layout, but we're fucking here.
The Pulp Fiction one reminded me that I think it was like a week and a half ago we thought, okay, the daughter is old enough now, she's almost 18.
Yeah.
Like, you haven't, all of these references due to us just talking about it and stuff. But
get her a bad motherfucking wallet.
Right. We actually we watched it with her. We watched Pulp Fiction for the first time, and she loved it. She was just like, this is amazing. We actually even broke down the film a little bit while we were sitting there, and I was like, and it occurred to me because I'd seen the movie, I don't know, 100 times or more, right? And but it occurred to me that Bruce Willis's character actually is the main character because, first and foremost, he actually has the highest body count in the film.
Yep.
And also he has, if you do, because the movie, if anybody who's not familiar with Pulp Fiction, I'm sorry for the spoilers, but or
Tarantino's filmmaking in general, where it's chronology is chopped to bits. Yeah.
Yes, but if you put it in chronological order, he also has the last line, and the last line is Zed's dead.
Yeah.
And then he drives away on the motorcycle. It's not the last line in the film, but it is the last line of sequential order.
Right.
And so, but yeah, because she was trying to puzzle piece it and go, well, what? So this happened before this and this?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, remember that? And she goes, oh, okay, yeah. So by doing that with her, it turned out that I ended up like kind of piecing together things that I'd never really even paid attention to, because you just kind of go along with a Tarantino film for the dialogue.
100%. Yeah.
The kind of shock value features and the cinematography and storylines are great, but like you don't really care how it's put together, just as long as he's the one who put it together.
Well, what's odd to me is where he like cherry picks one of his characters and airdrops them into another one of his films, and you're like, is this the same dude? Because Vincent Vega, played by John Travolta, was Michael Madsen's Mr. White in Reservoir Dogs, and he was
his brother,
fucking savage in that movie. Oh, it's his brother. Okay, that makes way more sense.
Yeah, they're brothers.
Dude, this is like not the same dude that we're meant to believe. Yeah. So, but he has these like threads that kind of weave through a lot of his different movies and stuff, which I'm a big fan of. You should take her through Memento next and watch the film, then watch all the black and white scenes in order, and then watch all the colored scenes in order. Three movies in one.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, so and that's on the list of like, because she's always asking me now, like, Dad, what's the next cool weird movie? I want to see another cool.
If you thought Carrie Ann Moss was weird, we're gonna check out Memento on Friday night at the Barnard House. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, it's a new week and it's new stuff to talk about.
It is.
I could get into sports. I could tell you that the most intriguing thing in professional football that happened was a score of 70-20, which made it look like a high school football game. But that's not what's dominating the headlines. It's the fact that Taylor Swift was in the skybox because she's potentially dating the whatever tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't give a fuck. I'm like, whatever. Sad for that guy. He's going to be one of her next songs. Like,
right.
Historically, things have not worked out well for her exes, so I'm just like, whatever.
No. Yeah. Maybe that's why they get into it. They're like, man, I want to be memorialized in a song forever. That
I don't want to be a Taylor Swift song pretty much ever for any reason, even if it's an uplifting one.
Nope.
Yeah. I'll stay away from that.
But what I was seeing going around was that it was due to her presence that they got the 70 runs or the 70 points.
Oh, no.
That was there.
Different game. But yeah,
Oh, it was a different game?
Yeah, it was the Dolphins ran up the score on somebody by like 70-20 concurrently while she was at the Chiefs game in a Chiefs jersey, presumably dating Travis Kelce in the skybox with his mom. Everyone's like, oh, and she helped clean the room on her way out of the skybox. This is an all-American Midwest girl. She deserved. I'm like, yeah, this was a tactical dating thing. It's safe. His mom's there. She has, Do you think that she's going to be the one, the Yoko Ono of the Chiefs, to get in there and then start taking some type of like fictitious ownership where she's like, I am a privileged, extra privileged white woman who thinks that the name the Chiefs is super offensive, and spearheads the Chiefs having to change their name, and it's all Taylor Swift's fault. She has the capability of that. She does. This is what I want to have
the caliber
happen.
of woman she is.
I want things to go really well, and then I want them to go really badly. And I want Usher to somehow not be the halftime performer, and it defaults to Taylor Swift. And so she gets to sing the breakup song about the guy that's in the halftime locker room if the Chiefs make the Super Bowl.
Oh,
like,
that is...
universes colliding, and he has to hear that while he's... Yeah. I don't know.
Man.
I don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah, no, that is...
But it needs
absolute... That would be a spiritual moment for me. That would be something that, like, a cosmic level, world colliding type of awesomeness that I think the world deserves. America deserves this. America deserves for all of those stars to line up, and that she's literally crying on stage while she's singing to the dude that's standing over there, and he's like throwing his hands up, and everyone's like just watching and panning back and forth with the camera.
That was like when they did
that'd be great.
The Missy Elliott halftime show or whatever, and it was like, oh my god, Missy Elliott's doing the halftime show. Suge Knight just killed another dude. The 90s are back.
Yeah. Just murdered somebody backstage.
I think he like hit some dude with his car or some shit. Like, I don't know. There's no transitioning from that, by the way.
No, that's a hard transition.
Yeah, this is the Modern Relics, not the Modern Preparedness podcast. So, I wanted to talk a little bit, because you have a big topic I'd love to get into. I want to talk a little bit about everybody systematically getting canceled. A lot of thinkers. This has been going on for some time. It just seems like it's a downpour of cancellations suddenly. And it always works. It routinely works. Like, okay, well, imagine, are you familiar with like the blue on blue, like operations? Example, the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the local police department are concurrently running operations that are in a clandestine fashion, and they run into one another. And the feds think they're about to pick up a guy, and then the local, that's our guy, he's undercover, right? That would be a blue on blue situation. Imagine like people stumbling into something on a big scale that they're not supposed to know about. And they're not under NDA to keep shit quiet. They're not part of some sort of clandestine operation. They're not manufactured by whatever entity is running the show. How do they get rid of them? How do they discredit them? They discredit everything they do, everywhere they've worked, who they are as a human. It just smash. And that's been a very successful pattern for a long time. And I'm just seeing it en masse. Now, I'm not saying this is a blue on blue situation, but like Russell Brand suddenly has these crazy sexual allegations. And the stuff that they're accusing him of is egregious. So, like, if there's merit behind it, like, okay, probably deserves jail time to a big degree. But Russell Brand has most recently been speaking out against the modern establishment, we'll say, and taking very critical thought process approaches to a lot of modern topics that we're just not supposed to talk about. COVID, politics, on and on and on. And all of a sudden,
it's been a huge switch for him too.
Yeah, and I was saying that to somebody else recently. I was like, I don't agree with Russell Brand's politics. I don't agree with a lot of what Russell Brand says, but I have a deep respect for Russell Brand's ability to talk about it in a very open-minded way and to challenge
He's very
people.
articulate.
Yeah, challenge
And he
people
has
on
a sense of humor.
exactly right. And I'm coming around on Bill Maher as well. Bill Maher, I don't agree with politically. I think but you watch Bill Maher from like the mid to late 1990s on his HBO show, and it was just like
He was a classic Democrat liberal, and he got put into a dinosaur category,
right.
where those people either don't exist or being pushed to the side, and oftentimes, oftentimes you've got the line and the Overton window shifts and leaves people like Bill Maher on the right, which he's nowhere near yet. Because he's so like kind of like, hey, that stuff doesn't make sense. They're like, you're out. Yeah. You're out. You're not part of the club anymore.
You can just hear the baby rage screaming back at him like, you can't say these things. Don't ask questions.
Right. And you're right. There's a whole contingency of high profile guys that this is happening to, where before it was like they were just kind of stomping out the little guys all over YouTube and stuff like that. You can't say that, you're gone. You can't say that, you're gone. And that happened for, since basically 2018 was the big purge all the way through, COVID. Yeah. And I'm more familiar with a lot of those kind of lower level guys, but like big guys like the Tates and Bill Maher and what's his name? Jordan Peterson and all of these guys who they're like, okay, your voice is too big and they're high profile. But this, this is kind of, there's two steps to this and it applies to some, not to others. For instance, this is the playbook that when somebody's voice or somebody doesn't go along with a plan with what they do, they throw a 10 to 20-year-old scandal at them that's unprovable, that's you can't put any facts to it. There was no police records or anything, much like the Kavanaugh hearings. Kavanaugh wasn't a big voice, but he was going to be a problem for them, so they threw whatever they could at him. But then you get people like Russell Brand and the Tate brothers. Now, in recent years, they have switched from a very and maybe not even switch, but Russell Brand specifically, I mean, he left. I think he went
from toting the party line almost unilaterally to critically thinking about stuff, agnostic of the party line.
Well, he quit drugs. He quit womanizing. He got married. He had kids. Right. And he started seeing the holes in all the COVID stuff and all of the vaccine stuff, which was the gateway for him. And then he started just kind of going, wait a minute, the military industrial complex is bad too, and this is bad, and the banking system's bad. And it really just kind of opened the floodgates for him, and he really started to do a shift of his humanity over the course of the last 2 years specifically. And because of his charisma, because of his ability to reach the masses and his likability, and he's polarizing, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of people who hate Russell Brand because they find him obnoxious. But the reality is the vast majority of people, and women included, because of his looks and because of his charisma and because of his past as somebody, but the problem is like the Tates, Andrew Tate, who I'm not a fan of due to his, I think he says a lot of like Jordan Peterson has talked about him and other people have talked about him. They're like, I don't like his particular brand, but I do know what he's saying is striking a chord in young men to say, you're not bad. You're not a bad person.
Well, and Jordan Peterson's inextricably twisted up with Andrew Tate because of Michaela Peterson. And now they're saying that, oh, well, you stepped out on your husband and you obviously hooked up with this guy because she went somewhere that he was at his request to talk about some stuff or do some shit.
Yeah.
Now there's this big expose.
But those two dudes did something, though, that kind of, sure, you can throw false allegations from 10, 15 years ago, but it's easy when you've had the past that you've had. When you have a Russell Brand type of past, they're like, oh, man, you had a... But what people are pointing out is like, okay, well, you didn't care about his past. Nobody cared. The BBC didn't care. Nobody else cared about his past at all. Not a word about his womanizing, about any of the possible crimes that he did. No one said a word. They were all, it's Russell Brand, just be quiet. Yeah. Until he started saying stuff that you didn't like. until he started challenging narratives, until he started being the guy with the biggest voice in the room that more people were turning their heads to look at.
Well,
then all of
and
a sudden,
his credibility is going to be tied up in this litigation for X number of years while we try and figure out his guilt or innocence on the charges or
Right.
whatever. Meanwhile, they pulled his YouTube channel.
all of his monetization.
All of his monetization.
And what's the scariest part is the British government actually emailed Rumble and TikTok and one other, and even Facebook. But Rumble decided to just post it and said that the British government actually requested that they demonetize him and that they kick him off the channel. If a government is going after you, if a government without any charges, there's no charges, whether or not he's guilty or not, it doesn't matter.
Right.
There still isn't charges. So these are all allegations. That's insane. That's a world that we cannot live in, where governments can go after you for allegations, for thought crimes, for stuff that people have accused you of.
Yep.
That's insane.
And that is exactly the point I was going to make. Yeah. Like when you look at this from a really helicopter view, the playbook is like, I mean, almost forecastable. You can guess what they're going to do and where they're going to go. Everything will be pulled from context, in context, out of context, and it's just going to be completely smearing you into oblivion so that you go away. That's it. They just want you to go away. Now,
they need to silence you.
That said, if there's hard evidence that comes out, we see a jury of your peers and you're convicted of criminal activity from that period of time, you deserve what you got coming to you, period. But for a lot of the stuff that I'm seeing here, specifically around Jordan Peterson, both the Weinstein brothers, like, it's just...
the Jordan Peterson stuff is insane. That's literally once again, thought crimes and controlled speech. And
if you want a litmus test on how liberty dies, take a look at Canada over the last 15, 20 years. And it's... Yeah. And this is going to be a shining example of crucifying. I mean, he'll go down as a martyr for sure. But at the end of the day, it's ruthless what governments and establishments are capable of doing on a whim. Whether you said something in the moment or 50 years ago, they'll drag it up. I feel bad for, you have children that did not exist when there was no internet. Right. And like, they didn't have to find a payphone. They couldn't make I think we had caller ID maybe toward the latter half of my youth. But at the end of the day, like, thank God I don't have to relive every fucking moment of my high school career on the internet. And I think there's an entire middle area between us and my kids who didn't realize that the internet was forever, and they did a bunch of dumb shit. And my kids now know, because they've seen all of what's going on. They're like, oh, don't put anything on the internet. And they're really savvy about it. They're like, nope, I'm not putting anything that would, they're very careful. And even then, like, Oliver only has very limited access to the internet anyway. And Kate, being 17, has a little bit more, but we've been very careful with not allowing them to have an enormous amount of social media. We've selected one or two that they can talk with friends, and we're monitoring it, so we're very careful in teaching them. This is what happens. Anything in your life is now going to be weaponized against you in one capacity or the other. In some form or fashion, everything that you've ever done, said, or thought is going to be used against you if you at all try to advance past somebody who's resentful of that. And so just keep that in mind, and I think we have an entire generation of kids who are learning that, and I'm grateful for it, but I don't know what that means for the internet. It's going to be a weird place. Not that it already isn't, but I mean, like, it's going to be even a more nebulous place. Later on. Even pre-Elon and all the shit with Twitter, now X and all that, like, just take the totality of that particular platform as an example. I thought the most intriguing social engineering experiment I could do was sit back and watch. Like, this is the first time we have a massive user base, and I can get on growth company versus sustainment and how I feel technology's in a midlife crisis, and I have good quality reasons to articulate that, but maybe for another pod. But as an example, this is the first time we have a large mass of people on a single platform that can say and do stuff in whatever it was, 140 characters or less at the time, with zero purpose, just to watch. Like when we used to gather for stuff, community events, town halls, carnivals, church, school, there's purpose to be there. There were frameworks, there were rules, there was a social contract. Not here. And it took seconds for it to become what I refer to as the bathroom wall of the internet. And it's got its own life cycle and its ebbs and flows, and I can kind of predict where I think things are going with it and stuff. But ultimately, I find it fascinating to see how much stock people put in that platform for their news, the information about what people say, how people scramble to delete their accounts and their old tweets before they run for office for something because they just know they're going to get dragged. It's a wonderful example of social engineering at its finest. Agnostic of where you think, who's pulling the strings or whatever. It's incredible to me because this is not how human beings act or interact ever in any other established form of medium, we'll say. Media, it's become the norm. But it's fascinating to me. Like, I've actually studied this for a long time. Like, there is no purpose for this whatsoever. And yet, it is the knife that finds its way into your back whenever you're outspoken or you're a public figure or you come to prominence for something or you run for office for some other reason. It's ammunition for a gun. And it shouldn't be, but it is.
Right. It's scaring good people away from running for office specifically for that reason.
Yep.
And the internet is, without a doubt, like the back of half the computers in this country. It is the apple of Eden. Mm-hmm. It is the information, the tree of knowledge, and what has happened is exactly what its intended purpose is for. Is that, yeah, we know a lot of stuff, but we know too much.
And that's our question to the audience today. Did you use a turn signal or an indicator when you were merging onto the information superhighway?
But yeah, I know a lot of good people around even these parts that were like, yeah, I'm like, you should run for city council, or you should run for that, or school board.
Scared to because they said something on the internet?
Yeah, they're like, it's not worth it. It's not worth it, them dragging my family's history or stuff that they dig up on me from years and years ago, and then it'll just hurt my kids and hurt my wife. It's not worth it,
and they're right.
Yeah,
that stuff eats at your soul to the point of no return.
As if people don't change their values and their thoughts chapter by chapter throughout their life, as if that's not something that they can do. Yeah,
I mean, I've come around on a lot of pretty outlandish shit that I've said before and publicly stated, yeah, I was wrong. Like this, I'm looking at things in a different light. Now, part of that's the evolution of me getting older and having a different perspective. It also has a lot to do with circumstance and environment and, financial stability and, all the different things that life has twisted and turned from. So I don't know if there's a point to this. I'm seeing more and more and more critical thinkers, whether I agree with them or not. I enjoy hearing them kibitz about stuff and arguing with them or watching other people argue with them.
Yeah.
Just getting absolutely painted over by the cancellation machine. And I don't know what it's going to take, because the truth will always come out, and even then it doesn't really work against cancellation. There is no real mechanism, so people just keep doing it.
Yeah.
And I think it's gross, but I'm just noticing a lot of people I enjoy, I don't get to see them as much or consume their content as much.
Yeah.
Because they're not there.
For instance, tonight, and I'll be watching this after we're done. I watch Tim Pool.
Sure.
Pretty much every night. It's kind of
Beanie
like
guy, right?
Talk show. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and he's far more kind of middle of the road libertarian for me, but he's a smart kid, and he's come around on a lot of his views, especially like Second Amendment and First Amendment views, and he's actually very he's a very brilliant kid, especially one that never got out of ninth grade and was a skateboarder for most of his life in Chicago. Like, so, but he's very articulate. He's a good thinker, and he always has really good guests on. And tonight, actually, after I'm done here, I'll be watching it. He has Carl Benjamin on, and Carl Benjamin was at the very forefront of kind of this cancellation of thinkers, internet thinkers, where he's from England, and he went by Sargon of Akkad for a long time, and then now he has a podcast called The Lotus Eaters, and
it's like one of the biggest podcasts, actually.
Right, they're great, and Carl Benjamin created that, and he but he started off just doing kind of philosophical and political commentary stuff, but with like a avatar of like Sargon of Akkad from history, and was just kind of going through that kind of stuff. And then he got outed, and then he just started doing his real name, and then he ran for office of some kind in the parliament in England, and he didn't win, but he caused waves. But he was one of the first people kicked off of Twitter, deplatformed and demonetized. He was he was part of Gamergate really early on with that whole thing. So that was kind of the genesis of all of this. It was like the digital
slaughtering of Julian Assange is about the only other story closest to that. But like on a purely digital.
Yeah, and he's worked through it. He's come back, and he's actually probably even bigger than he ever was with the Lotus Eaters. He's actually, for the first time in a long time in the United States, Luke from We Are Change interviewed him yesterday, and he's going to be on tonight. I'm actually pretty curious as to, because I'm sure they'll be talking about very similar topics to what we're talking about tonight. But so that'd be fascinating.
And it's not new to me. I've seen this happen a bunch, but it is thick, I guess, among the people that I enjoy challenging my train of thought or coming up with concepts and creative things. And I was just like, wow, even you, like they're coming after this guy now, and holy shit.
And that's the thing. This is what's different now, is that they could go after a Carl Benjamin, they could go after Stefan Molyneux, or people, who aren't necessarily going along with the narrative, but they were 100,000 people here, 150,000 people there, kind of low level as in terms of like the broad base of variety of watchers and viewers, and it definitely had a following, but not enough. If you shut them down, the vast majority of normies aren't going to notice. They're noticing when Russell Brand gets shut down.
Yeah, for sure.
They're noticing, Andrew Tate is like,
that's a factor of millions though, too.
Right.
Like they're
exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
This is a different level that they're working on now. Yeah. So that's why it's so significant, is that if they're going to go after Russell Brand, no one is safe.
Right.
Carlson isn't safe. None of them are safe. No one's safe. And if they're willing to go after that kind of level of celebrity, to shut his voice down, not to go after him in a Charlie Sheen, R. Kelly kind of way, but just to shut his voice down.
Or like that dude from the 70s show, Danny Masterson.
Yeah. Somebody who's, I know, which is also strangely, that's like my daughter's favorite all-time TV show. She's watched it over and over again, but she's just like,
that brings up another interesting argumentative point that I got into recent-ish with a coworker of mine. Was do we throw the baby out with the bathwater when it comes to separating the art from the artist? Example, can you still enjoy watching that 70s show for some yucks because it's the fucking sitcom? Everything's tied up in 32 minutes or whatever it is, right? Like,
I'm not
18 minutes.
That person in his real life. I'm celebrating the character of Hyde.
And they couldn't.
I'm watching Hyde.
And I'm like, you cannot do it? No. And I'm like, you can't sit there and tell me that, like, and Michael Jackson, by the way, beat 2 cases while he was alive And now posthumously, they have this thing come out, the documentary or whatever. I'll never listen to him again. Wait a minute, what? Like, you can't sit down and watch American Beauty or LA Confidential without being like Kevin Spacey's fucking. Yeah, and they couldn't. No, fuck him. Fuck that. Erased from my memory. It's gone. And I'm just like, okay. Because those are real examples of some real fucked up people. I'm not defending the person. I'll just let's put that out into the internet.
Yeah, no, that's not what you're doing at all. And I think that there's a difference between recognizing the art that this person has already put out and that it's good art. You can't deny it. But then also monetarily supporting them within the context of their current if you don't agree with what they're doing or if they got convicted of something, from that point on, there's a line, I think, and I don't think it's wrong to cut a line there and go, okay, I can enjoy Thriller, but I'm not going to enjoy but
certainly there's companies you used to buy product from that went a different way and you stopped buying product from them, and you might still have a hat or a t-shirt or you know,
I'm not going to stop wearing my Nike shoes.
Car or house or shoe or exactly. And
because of the fact that
there was no analogy I could make in this argument, by the way, that where Redacted was just going to come off their high horse. And I'm like, this is why we're not tight, because the second I fucking say something, then the whole history of me is
I'm memory hold because of 100%. Something you disagreed with.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's the crappy society we live in. Anyway, let's talk about something else.
Yeah, you brought up something very interesting to me a couple days ago about Rome and man and the association there. Maybe some thoughts. Unpack that for us. What are we talking about?
So obviously it's gone viral all over the internet where there has been some, a doctor and an author both brought this to the forefront and the attention, and somebody made a video about it, and then it just leapfrogged through the internet, and it became very obvious, and everyone became very aware of the fact that as a general rule, and it's not across the board, but the highest percentage of men, when asked by their female significant other, how often do you think of the Roman Empire? And men will sit there for a second on the camera or, whatever the case may be, and we'll sit there and go, I don't know. And the answer is always within, not that much, maybe 2 times a month or, every day, and it's somewhere in between that. And no matter what the answer, it's way, 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 way more than women
imagine it to be. Empire. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're like, what? You think about it twice a month, or you think about it every day or twice a week? That's insane. Well, why would you do that?
I might posit that on a subconscious level, women probably have to as well. If you think about modern architecture, columns, arches, stuff like that, but I don't know. Otherwise, consciously, maybe not as much as dudes, but
no. And in fact, this guy made this one video, and it was a funny video of him walking through the mall, and it was him in his own head. They're holding hands, and he's in his head thinking about, okay, there's an exit there, here's an exit there, that guy looks sketchy, keep her away from that guy. And then it pans to the girl, and she's like, not thinking of a thing because she's around her dude, right? So, and it was just kind of a play on that. And I think that the reason men think about it is a magnitude of reasons. One of them is that our entire Western civilization, historically speaking, all generationally Western thought was built off of the Roman Empire. It was built off of the Roman intellect. It was built off of the theologians of that time. And even the society of the United States was built off that. So we have it just kind of ingrained in us that it parallels certain kind of cultural aspects.
Yeah.
and we as men are fixers. So if we see a problem, we look at the problem and go, how do we fix it? And then we kind of reflect on, the last time, if we've got a problem with a car, we think about the other times that the car,
right.
Like, okay, I remember, I did this with this car, so I have to do this with this car, right?
Very process of elimination and deductive. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. So when you're talking about societal issues, if you're talking about governmental issues, and if you're talking about anything that's going on within our society right now, the point of context for what that is Rome. And there's no way around it. And I think even on a subconscious level, we just kind of associate that through basically generational genetics. Also, if we're taken into aspect or into the equation that there are a large majority of the country in one capacity or another that falls under some type of Christendom, whether it be Mormonism, Catholicism, any type of Protestantism, any of those type of based religions in the Judeo-Christian kind of sphere, all of that happened around Rome too. So you're constantly within that scope as well, where if you're talking at all biblically in even the slightest context, it puts your brain back into Jerusalem during the time of Roman.
That was my point earlier. Like even subconsciously, combat sports versus the games, columns, arches, architectural things, modern art, technique around communication. A lot of this is founded. We'll throw the Greeks in there here and there we'll sprinkle some Greek on there for influence and stuff. But yeah, you're right.
Absolutely.
And I think I think about it probably a shitload more subconsciously to that effect, like as advertised. But I don't think I consciously think about Rome more than maybe, I don't know. When's the last time I had a Roman Thursday? Maybe once, twice a month, right? We're like thinking about these things. But I saw, because after you brought that up, I went and I started digging around. I saw they did one on the Daily Wire and everyone was just blown the fuck away. Like all the producers and camera people and cast, and everyone's like, what? But
no, but it's also,
did you ask your wife what she thinks about any Roman stuff or any of that shit?
I found out what women think about.
Oh, what is this?
We explored. It's murder.
Yeah, the murder podcast. Why is that so damn tantalizing?
Because they like to be afraid of the concepts. They and what they need is to be in a place of fear when they're in a place of safety. And it is something that on a subconscious primal level women all desire, is to be in a place of risk while they're in a place of safety. So they can put themselves into that, in the mindset of, I could be the victim, but I'm not, because I'm safe within this circumference of.
Do you think when we get a lady guest on, we're going to get shredded for saying that? I don't know.
I've been married for almost 20 years, man. I don't care.
Women are very perplexing. The whole, don't get any attention until you're actively in a relationship with somebody else. And every guy's been through this. Like, where the fuck were you 6 months ago? Before you started dating.
Yeah, and you put a ring on that finger, and
it's like, is this a subconscious desire to want what you can't have? Is it, is it beyond that? Is it pheromonal because I'm like exuding some sort of extra sauce confidence than before? I don't know. Women are interesting. Extra sauce confidence. Yeah. Women are interesting creatures that I will never understand. In fact, I think when mankind does understand women, it's like that moment right before death where you're like, I got it. And then you're just gone and no one will ever know. Murder mystery. That is what they think about a lot.
It is. That is the Roman Empire for women, is murder mystery.
Do you think that's topical? Like it's of the moment and it'll change?
And
like right now, podcasts are just what's accessible. Yeah.
Women live in the current. Men live in historical past, which is why we like World War II, World War I, which is why we like all of those things.
World War III.
There are obviously exceptions to that where women are more analytical to a historical context. But if we're talking about averages, if we're talking about the vast majority, women are in the moment creatures. We are, even if you want to subscribe to the kind of the caveman theory, you know, they were inside putting berries away and cooking things, and we were sitting on the edge of the cave going, hey, remember when that other tribe with those weird shields came up and slaughtered that whole other town?
Right.
You know, maybe we should keep an eye out for those guys. And so we're always remembering, that's why for the most part, historically, men were the storytellers. They were the passers on of knowledge. And it wasn't always the case, but almost predominantly, historically, culturally, everywhere.
Right.
But that being said, that's the thing, is that right now men are reflecting on the bread and circuses. We are seeing that in society right now. And so we look back on Rome because that's where the terminology came from. That's where most of our language came from. That's,
right.
You know, all of our Latin-based languages came from Rome. So like almost all the context that we could ever possibly kind of even dip into on a day-to-day level of just like average day living somehow is connected to Rome.
Yeah.
And it just drives us to that. And also just, you know,
well, with the contextual,
were fun and
yeah,
cool.
they are. Yeah. Like, so were the games too. But that's like more of a primal dudism, I think. I wonder if, like,
but it adds one more element to it.
I wonder if the concept of America in generations later will replace the Roman concept for us in the present generation.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a systematic erasure of his history and context in favor of, you know,
here's
diversity and inclusion and all the, you know, the new social contract that's being painted over a lot of the historical context. But I do think it's good to see a bastion of what was, to at least enlighten what is or what not to become. So
to split off a little road here, still within the context of Rome, I actually had a thought experiment that was really weird that I would like to present to the public here.
Let's go.
So the American Revolution and the construction of the United States of America, when the founding fathers were together, trying to decide what type of governmental system we would have outside of a monarchy.
Right.
You know, they didn't want democracy. And the reason why they didn't want democracy, which is why we're a constitutional republic and not a democracy for all the viewers, never have been. But the reason we aren't a democracy is because they all detested the concept of mob rule government, which is democracy, which they got because they were all educated by highly educated men, but they, you know, the Magna Carta was a key figure to and paper and component to what built our country. And then also the teachings of Aristotle, Socrates, and the philosophers of that time. And they built it off of their governmental philosophies, and they hated, you know, somewhere in the realm of, you know, 1,500 years or more prior to the construction of this country, those guys hated democracy, which means they talked about it. So all of the Greek and Roman philosophers all talked about different governmental systems, which means they had experience in them. But where? Like, at what point before Greece and Rome was there ever a society that was sophisticated enough to have explored democracy to its end? Because it would have taken many, 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 many years. It would have taken many generations in order to see whether or not it succeeded or failed, and what its failings were and what its successes were. And if they hated democracy on principle, on the idea that, no, we've seen what that produces, we don't want that. At what point prior to that time frame in our ancient history did they have generations of democracy? What civilization was that? Because there isn't a historical context for it as far as we know. You go into Babylonian, they weren't. All of them were kingdoms. All of them were top-down blood lineage kingdoms. So at what point were they reflecting on a society that they witnessed go through a democracy that failed, that made them hate it so much? And that's something I can't seem to historically figure out. So if any of you viewers have any ideas or know the answers to this, because I'm just a dumb guy who colors on people, put it in the comments. I want to know.
Yeah,
that's a question for you guys.
I don't think they were listening to lectures from Greta Thunberg. Fairly confident.
Yeah, right.
That wasn't part of the lexicon back then.
Yeah, it wasn't some teenage cross-eyed girl from the Netherlands that was teaching them about planet conversations and how dare you? Dare you?
Did I tell you about my super secret Greta Thunberg paraphernalia?
Crush. Oh, paraphernalia. Okay.
Yeah. So
you have wait. First of all, I didn't know there was such a thing. Second of all, you have Greta Thunberg? Greta Thunberg, or however you want to pronounce it.
I'm building some.
Oh.
So I'm going to put a really nasty supercharger or turbocharger on my car, and it's going to be even worse in fuel mileage. And you know that very popular photo of Greta, like when she's arguing with somebody and her nose is all scrunched up and she's like, that screenshot or whatever. So I'm actually having that vinyl printed, so when you open the hood of the car and you look at the engine, you see Greta's face under there. Like,
yes, all of the yes. Oh, I cannot wait to see that.
Yeah, I was like, this is too good.
Perfect.
Can I have it in like 3 foot by 3.5 foot increment? Where's this going? It's gonna go underneath the hood of my car. So when you open it up, there's Greta just.
Just getting all of that blood right in her face is going to be the best.
It's going to be awesome. I realize that's a little childish as I say it out loud. I also don't care very much, and I'm still going to do it.
Good. I approve, and I think that anything that... Go ahead.
I was going to say, I thinking back to your thought exercise, I wonder how good they were at extrapolation on, like, listen, we have a prevailing idea that works, and over a long enough period of time it will continue to work if this is the societal founding. Or let's run lab experiments on paper on a long enough timeline of other societal constructs that are, a democracy by nature versus a constitutional republic versus a monarchy. Which has been the dominant hierarchical structure throughout modern history, right? Like, so.
And they had the intellect to do that. I believe that they were of that caliber of intellect that they could probably have wargamed it on paper. But I also don't think that I think that they were smart enough to realize that even wargaming it on paper discounts and disconnects that concept from human nature and from a bunch of other things that because they would not have been able to calculate. I think that there's a point of reflection that they would have had to have had.
I would imagine they would have said, we're noodling around with stuff that has extremely significant consequences. So they probably did their due diligence, to your point, but at what end is a really good question. Because, I'm trying to bounce the timelines around in my head, and I can't seem to think of an observational period.
Atlantis. Atlantis is what they were basing it off of. That's where I was going with that.
It's possible. It's all
possible.
Who
Greta
built
Thunberg is from Atlantis,
and who built the pyramids, and how did that get from there to the founding fathers, and much more when we come back. That's a good topic. It's gonna sit with me, and I think now that it's in my conscious, I'm gonna probably start thinking about Rome a lot more and being like, oh yeah, It's really interesting.
Aaron asked me before I even heard of this, and I thought that she was just coming out of the blue with it.
Yeah, it's a weird left field question.
Yeah, I was sitting on the couch and I'm just like, what? And then I like sat there and I thought about it. I was like, I want to say it like weirdly, probably every day. And she's all, really? And I was like, yeah. But I mean, I'm kind of like in the weeds with like politics stuff and history stuff. So it makes more sense for me than the average guy. But like, but yeah, I would say probably every day. Like, and without, there might be a day or two skipped here or there, but for the most part, the Roman Empire comes up in my thought process fairly frequently. So probably to a worrisome amount.
It's a good question for the audience, though. Hit us up, Modern Relics Podcast at gmail.com. Let us know how often you think about Rome, the Roman Empire, Caesar's Palace, Las Vegas, debauchery, rabbit hole. So you brought up an interesting article that I found on the Redskins. That's going to be this week's Defending Woke Logic. Washington Commanders. This is the name of a title of an article. Washington Commanders, fitting name for oppressors. Native American group claims in new federal lawsuit. Team owner Josh Harris, money and power rival the European countries who conquered Native Americans, the suit says. Essentially, the premise of this, because this is a long article, is that the Native American Guardians Association accuses the NFL franchise and the new owner Josh Harris of defamation, civil conspiracy, and civil rights violations for the team's role in suppressing Native American history in a complaint filed against the United States District Court of North Dakota. In essence, changing the name from Redskins to Commanders was a thumb in the eye to Native American culture who actually enjoyed being represented in the way that they were. And there were, it goes on to say, 150,000 petition signatures of Native Americans that were like, yeah, dude, the Redskins were the only team in the National Football League to honor the actual Native American. Like, so you could talk about the Chiefs or whatever. There's this comparative photograph of Blackfoot Chief John Two Guns, White Calf, who served as the inspiration for the Redskins logo, and it's a striking resemblance, which represented the NFL franchise from 72 to 2020. And I think the greater discussion around this, while that's kind of funny, not because of the implications, but the fact that this was obviously not driven by Native Americans in the first place to change the team's name. I think the funnier part of the conversation is that, once again, it's the appropriation of something misrepresented by a bunch of white libs in their Ugg boots running around claiming how offensive it is on behalf of a culture they know nothing about.
Yeah, it's a bunch of Megan, Tiffany, and Todd's like getting offended for, people that they've probably never even met. And it's unbelievable that this has been going on. It's ridiculous.
I'm sorry. Who was the trio involved in this?
Megan, Tiffany, and Todd.
And Todd,
and
right?
They're a throuple because they're polyamorous. But
go on.
But it's an absurdity. It's an absurdity that we've been living through for a couple of decades now, where they are erasing in a backwards way. They're erasing the people that they're trying to help in their own ridiculous way, which I'm not even convinced that that's what they're trying to do. I think that they're just truly racists. Yeah. And they're literally just trying to erase cultures in the namesake of woke progressiveness. And it's now becoming more and more obvious that it's not the people who are supposedly targeted. That, I mean, at what point do we go with sports teams go, you know what, we need to, we really need to name our whole franchise that we're going to be building this entire money structure off of, our entire organization off of. Let's name it on something that we absolutely, either think is stupid or that we hate.
Right.
So let's name it the Indians. Let's name it the Chiefs. Let's
Right.
name it, the whatever the situation is. You never do. You don't name something after something that you don't venerate, that you don't put in high regard or high esteem. You look at them as warrior people. You look at them as people that you respect, that this is something that you want other people to respect about you. You're the Chiefs. You're the Redskins.
This is a classic words matter approach to tackling, and albeit the owner of the Redskins of the day prior to the new ownership was kind of a piece of shit. But it was, let's lump all of that in with everything else we don't like and just go after it. And it's mind numbing, but I'm glad this lawsuit exists. And and this is a quote from the article. It says, this lawsuit is a fuck you to the NCAI and a fuck you to the Commanders and to cancel culture. And that's the plaintiff attorney, La Vigilia, I think. You're 100% right. Like, we don't memorialize things that we're trying to make fun of, or that's what memes are for on the internet, not NFL franchises,
Right. Or even college football franchises. I mean, this is swept college too. So
God.
Let's MLB, let's say the Cleveland Indians are now no longer the Cleveland Indians, one of the longest standing beautiful baseball teams of all time. Yet now they're the Guardians. What the fuck are you guarding?
Right.
What are you guarding? Like, that doesn't even make sense in context to the idea of two opposing teams going against each other in combat.
It's like being proud of getting signed by the Seattle Tofu Squares. Yeah.
Even I get weird when the animal that they name a sports team after is a little too soft. Like, I'm just like, well, what's a Blue Jay gonna do? But like, for instance, when Seattle finally got a hockey team, I was on board for the Kraken. That's the name I wanted because it makes sense. You're a big, mean monster, and you're by the ocean, Seattle, all of that.
You're a sea monster.
That makes sense. Like, why on earth are you naming your teams after soft nonsense instead of like warrior level kind of concepts? And
well, that's just your toxic masculinity talking.
It is. I tested it earlier. It's really high today. But
dude, we should come out with okay, so when you have to prick your finger and take the blood sample for the diabetes scanner thing or whatever, we should do a toxic masculinity test somehow. But make it like some innocuous mood ring and be like, oh, what color is the mood ring? Yeah, and just like resell some bullshit snake oil under the. I bet we could make a ton of money there.
I have a shirt that says precisely that on it. I'll wear it next week for you. So just to keep it going. But it just doesn't make any sense. And I feel bad for, what ends up happening is they end up like the woke gets so over the top that they end up putting me on the side of the people that are normally the biggest complainers. Like, I got no hatred for Native Americans, but I'm also like an American. Like, let's all be Americans. Like, I understand history sucked for you guys. I understand history sucked for a lot of people, but guess what? We're venerating you in these sports teams in this particular era of time. And at first, we all thought that they were the ones that were upset, but apparently statistically, like from what I heard today, is that 90% of Native Americans want the name back to the Redskins that were pulled. And then also that goes across the board for all of the other teams that have been under siege of this kind of wokeness. And I'm super... It's the same thing like when and once again, here we go. Here's the Seattle bit. The same thing when the city of Seattle decided to try to implement a whole bunch of nonsense against Jeff Bezos with independent contractors and all of the other companies. And
the head tax?
Right. And it because of their absurdity, the head tax, exactly.
Yep.
When the absurdity of that put me on the side of Jeff Bezos,
Right.
you fucked up. You fucked up when a guy like me is like, you know what? Jeff Bezos is right in this particular case.
He's kind of making some good points there. Yeah.
Yeah. It's when the woke that you can't agree with goes way past, that there's another level that makes you kind of, I guess that's kind of the Overton window shifting, kind of like making you okay with this stuff because this stuff's so absurd, and that's kind of the point.
Yeah, there's a natural desensitization of something that's like an incremental change into something else, and then there's this giant window shifting so far left that while you're still in the middle, everything is shifting over, so the shit that you're still saying sounds radically right by comparison to what's moved over. For those of you that don't,
right, Bill Maher.
Well, for those of you that don't understand what we're talking about or think that we're quacks, you really should look up the Overton window. And yes, as a tangible example, stick a pin in the map on wherever you are on the political orientation scale, and then shift that bitch left and see how far right you become with the same ideas that you have.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're living in a world, like, I appreciate this medium, particularly in recorded form, because it's asynchronous communication, right? Like, people ask, well, what's the upside and downside of making a YouTube video versus streaming? It's the instant reaction possibility. Like, it's the engagement level. See, what a lot of people don't understand with asynchronous communication is I get to tell a story and then I get to tell it again in post, and then you get to see what I want you to. Very different. Like, I'm seeing all of this stuff in real time and trying my best to react to it in real time with potential conflict or consequence. But en masse, when nobody says or does anything or talks about this stuff or conceptualizes things or works shit out in real time, we're so used to having this polished asynchrony where it's just fed to us and we just get to consume, and then you're just labeled one thing or the other. It's kind of a dangerous game to play. It really is. And I'm here for it because it stretches me into learning a little bit. But when you see all of this stuff just unilaterally moving one direction or the other, it's cause for concern. And I think everyone should be concerned about it. It's not just, tales from the voting booth and how treacherous that may or may not have been. Like, look around. Do you feel in the city that you live in more secure and safe walking streets at night than you did 5-10 years ago, 15 years ago? You feel less safe? Are you worried about fentanyl? Like, what is it?
I have not one, but two stories that fit exactly what you're saying.
And I'm like, I'm wrong.
Week.
I'm wrong because I'm the traditionalist, right? I'm wrong because I'm bringing up the past and I'm not being progressive. Not the case. My kind of
your
woke
eyes are
is
open. You're looking around.
Yeah, my kind of woke is waking the fuck up and looking around. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, even if I'm coming earnestly from a place of honesty.
Yeah.
Like, I'm willing to be wrong on some stuff, but you gotta put your hands in it a little bit,
Yeah.
And for the purposes of the conversation I had to that effect, they understood, but the greater context was lost. Like, well, it's like, all right, I had you to a point, but yeah, you should be talking about this stuff. You should listen to people you disagree with to challenge your preconceived notions. I've said it before on this podcast. Algorithms are algorithms for a very good reason. They embed you with things they think you like or that you have dwell time on, and it slowly constricts a bubble of influence down to whatever it thinks you want to hear, and that starts to reshape your brain waves, starts to reshape how you think. So, I don't know. A lot of this is happening at a very high rate of speed, and I'm not sure where we diverge from that when all the good critical thinkers are being canceled and all of the windows are shifting as left as they can. Academia's got their head up their ass. Critical race theory is now a thing that's being codified in the public school systems. California just
But
passed a
being-
thing where like the health and welfare of a child is now predicated on your belief in their gender affirmation. Like it's just
Yeah.
an onslaught and it's coming from
It
everywhere.
is. Every angle, every single angle. And the like with the critical race there, the CRT stuff, I mean, all they do is repackage it and rebrand it under a different terminology, SEL or portrait of a graduate or whatever the case may be. But also like the one thing that I am seeing though is that when people who have their blinders on and are being fed the algorithm and aren't really recognizing the world around them, the problem that ends up happening is the world ends up kicking in their door, and in an almost literal sense.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a shock to the system. And then before you know it, they're like, oh, wait a minute. And
Right.
they look around and they're like, oh, this is what the world really looks like. And that happened twice this week, both Seattle stories with friends of mine. One of them, you probably know from the Seattle Times.
Mm-hmm.
His name's Evan. He worked at the shop for a brief period of time, and I've known the kid since he was 19. And through all the COVID stuff, he kind of woke up, like
Right.
didn't become woke, but became awake. And he started seeing the depravity and the social illness that was going on all over Capitol Hill. And he got really into Second Amendment stuff and really into firearms and everything, and lost a lot of friends that way, but he just didn't care. He shed all the dead weight and just kind of went, whatever, this is reality and you're not living it. And he'd been planning on moving over here, had been talking to me for a while, trying to move his way this way to get out of Western Washington. And him and his girlfriend were just kind of trying to make the right moves and plan it out. And then he got kicked. He literally got his door kicked in. So he lived in a secured apartment. Him and his girlfriend were at work, and the apartment across from him had a somebody move out, and they cleaned it out and they left the windows open in order to air it out. Well, 2 drug addicts came in through the window, did a bunch of drugs in the empty apartment, walked out the front door and looked directly at his front door and kicked it in, splintered it, and stole 4 AR-15s, fully kitted out, like $8,000 a piece, like with all the optics and everything on it. Like he puts money into his weapons. And they stole those and then a few other things and left. Well, they were even loaded. And so he thought, I live in a secured apartment. It shouldn't be a big deal. Well, it was. And then they got home after a call from the landlord, and they got home at 11 and called the Seattle Police Department 6 times, and they never showed up. Firearms are missing. They never showed up.
Yep.
They had to, after midnight, had to walk down to the police station and actually file their report in person because they would not come to the house. At the same time that this is going on, a good friend of mine, Joel, who'd never been to Seattle, he's from this area, and he's actually from California, but he'd moved up here years and years ago, but he'd never gone to Seattle. And he had to go to the airport to fly down to California to go visit his daughter.
Yeah.
And said he was going to have some downtime and wanted to check out Seattle, having never been there. So he shows up, and he calls me and goes, what should I do while I'm there? What should I see? I was like, well, don't go here. Don't go there. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Isn't that funny how you have
frames.
You have many places not to go check out, and very few places.
Like there's more warnings than there are. Like, like you should be able to go, oh, you should go check out this restaurant or this thing. And I'm like, don't go here during these time frames. Yeah. And so, dude, you're going to love this. This is just, so the dude, after getting my recommendations, he goes up to go visit some people, takes the light rail up, because he's staying at a hotel in SeaTac, and then comes back to find that within 18 hours of him being there, he had his catalytic converter taken from his car, just yanked right off of it. And he's just like, what? And then he had time to kill because he was waiting for insurance and the police reports and stuff. So he decided to go up and he took buses and stuff. He goes, he had just come from LA, and he said it's worse than LA.
Oh yeah.
He's all, it was a war zone everywhere I went. And I was like, yeah, I told you, man. I told you. And he goes, I totally believe you now. It like blew his mind, opened up his eyes and went, oh, this is reality. This is actually what's going on. And so now Evan came over for dinner. Joel got back. His car's getting figured out, but both of them had a very sobering, real experience of what's actually going on around them, and instead of the fictitious thing that they're being fed from their algorithms.
Yep.
And so,
yeah, dude, like I have a friend of mine who has a buddy that I haven't met, but he kept taking screenshots of their conversation with one another and sending it to a group thread I'm on. And essentially like this homeless person was like kicked out a window and climbed into this guy's car and was just living in this dude's car. He went to go start it up to go to work that morning, and there was a dude in the back seat. And pulls over, tells the guy like, hey, get the fuck out, whatever, blah, 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 files a police report, or tries to. They force him to download an app to then pull up like a police report that he fills out, and it was not significant enough of a situation to warrant sending an officer to actually surveil the situation and see how things were. And to my knowledge, and I'll follow up with him, that it's still an open police thing and the insurance just had to deal with it. Simultaneously, a guy that I work with started his car in the driveway, walked inside to grab his hot coffee cup while the car was warming up, and walked back out. And on his security camera, a truck pulls up, some meth lady pops up out of the bushes out of nowhere, hops in his car and just drives off with it. He gets a bunch of interest and information spun up on all the community forums. They spot his car in 3 or 4 different places. And the police said, it'd be easier for your insurance to write it off and get a new one than for us to do anything about this, so we're not going to. And, oh, that's your car that I can physically see over there? When I get some time, I'll run the tags and the numbers on it to make sure. He had the insurance claim done, a new car purchased and delivered to his house from like one of those Carvana places where you just order one and they drop it off, and had his temporary registration and was driving it before, I think for 2 or 3 months before the police said, yeah, we found it. It's completely totaled. All the windows are busted out. And, you know, you should file an insurance claim. He's like, I already wrote it off. Like, I've moved on. You guys aren't doing your jobs at all.
That's yours now.
Yeah.
Enjoy, city.
Yep.
Like that now, that's city property. Good for you.
And it was a Mini Cooper. It was a really nice little Mini Cooper that he had just taken from him. And I got to follow that story firsthand from him. Well, secondhand, but from his firsthand perspective, sharing it out. It's absurd. I still had the video on my phone of this chick just popping up out of the bushes like a meerkat, hopping in his car and driving off with it.
Yeah.
Seattle is that bad.
It is that bad.
Yeah.
So, and I hate that we cannot seem to
steer away from taking shots. It's our weekly take shots at Seattle here on
Sorry, guys,
Relics podcast. Yeah.
You know, when you got it coming, you got it coming. Like I'm sorry, but that's the same thing with, you know, a mouthy dude who doesn't know how to shut his mouth sometimes. Like, that's Seattle for you all the time.
Dude, and that's why I've been saying, I'm like, I could see the chalk outline forming around that city. I had to go.
Yep.
I had to go.
Yep.
Finally, you normally bring up a movie that you've watched. Yeah. You didn't watch one. I did. I would recommend it. Called The Big Short. It has, I'm going to struggle with names because I didn't actually do any homework on this, but the guy from the American Office, Michael Scott, that guy.
Okay. Steve
Carell. It has one of the hot Ryans in it, not Ryan Gosling. Gosling is like narrating it. It's the premise is about the 2008 housing crisis and figuring out that most of the bundled securities that were being repackaged and sold had really dog shit loans underneath them. And you can follow this back in real time. Companies like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and Countrywide Home Loans were basically just writing multiple, not just one home loan, but multiple home loans to people that were like security guards, strippers, like, there's no equity underneath all this stuff.
It's like literally what HGTV built an entire series of shows on. Like a couple shows up, she's a school teacher and he does like magic trick for birthday parties, and they have like a $3 million budget kind of thing.
Yeah,
that's what that was in real life, like not just on TV.
Very much. And anyway, there's a group of dudes that figure out how to short these bonds that were too big to fail, and they made trillions of dollars on it at the expense of the American economy, watching it crumble because it was going to fail at some point anyway. Christian Bale's in this movie. And it's funny because they come up with a lot of and I'm familiar with this because I passively study it and whatever. But I'm familiar with stocks, bonds, trading in the lingo a little bit. But when they approach a complex topic, they break the fourth wall and they'll say, and so to explain to you exactly how this works, we're going to cut to Margot Robbie in a bubble bath. And then it cuts to Margot Robbie in a bubble bath who's holding like a Chardonnay or something in her hand or, whatever. And she like walks through, and that's why this is that. Now fuck off. And then the camera disappears. You never see her in the film ever again. Later, it's like, and so to explain this concept, when they break the fourth wall, we're going to cut to who's the really pretty singer that dated Justin Bieber for a long time? Jessica
Biel?
No.
No.
She was like a Nickelodeon kid, I think. She's a very prominent recording artist now. A Spanish girl.
Aguilera?
No, way younger. She dated Justin Bieber.
Oh, Justin Bieber.
Selena Gomez.
Selena Gomez. Okay.
It's like, so to explain,
I was thinking Justin Timberlake because I'm an old man.
It's like, so to explain this, we're going to cut to Selena Gomez, and she's like at like a blackjack table or whatever, and there's like all these people around her, and she's like explaining the concept. And that's like if somebody were to bet on my bet with 10-1 odds, and then someone behind them bet on their bet of 10-1 odds that I would actually roll a 7 or whatever. And it like actually films all this, and she kind of like blows on the dice and rolls and goes, "Oh no, I lost," and like walks off the table, and you can see the cascading effect of trillions of dollars worth of bets behind her, like getting absolutely imploding. And then it never cuts to Selena Gomez ever again. It goes right back, like whips right back into Wall Street with all these different characters.
I love this. I love this narrative, this storytelling.
Very well done. Like there's just a cavalcade. Like the two main characters, Gosling's kind of the narrator. The main character is kind of Steve Carell and simultaneously kind of Christian Bale. And they're coming from two different like points of view on the same problem simultaneously. Very well done. I recommend it. I was thoroughly entertained on what is generally a pretty dry topic, unless you're a weirdo like me that follows the stock market and shit.
Right.
Yeah, I recommend it, dude. You should watch it. It's called The Big Short. I think it's on Netflix. I think that's where I watched it. Was Netflix or Amazon. That's generally where I consume content, like movies. Yeah. But really good.
Cool.
Wildly talented cast. Super well put together, and pretty fun to watch. Also kind of heart-wrenching to watch because if you're like us, you lived through that period of time and it was no fucking joke, but the signs were there.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, what year did this come out?
Oh boy. 2016? 2017? Something like that. Does that sound right?
Let me look it up. Hold on.
Yeah. I'm going to say I have the internet box right here. The Big Short film.
2015.
15. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I'm definitely going to probably put this on tonight to put my. Oh man, it's got Brad Pitt.
Everybody's in it.
Yeah.
Jeremy Strong, who kills it. Marissa Tomei's in there. There's.
This is crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna check this out because it's one of those movies that kind of fell out, like wasn't on my radar.
Yeah.
Because I didn't care about the subject matter at the time, and so it was one of those ones that it just didn't appeal to me, and now it does. And so I'm like, ooh, I need to go revisit that.
And for me, like I do, and it was, but it just fell off my importance list to the point that I forgot about it. Like I always meant to watch the movie, and I was like, we'll check this out. Really good time though. It was super entertaining. So
I'll put the wife to sleep to that one tonight.
You're like sweet dreams of Roman empires and murder mysteries. All right. You got anything else? Is that it for this week?
I think that's it, man. I think I'm pretty tapped. I think I'm supposed to go do dinner again. It involves chicken of some kind, but the whole family's gone, so I think I'm here alone with the dogs.
Nice.
So, but yeah, wife's at a meeting, kids working, and the other one's at a friend's soccer game. So, I'm just here with the animals.
Nice. Well, I've got a few town hall meetings that are supposed to be hitting the schedule for my district coming up. So I'm hoping I get to do Tales from Town Hall.
That'd be rad.
The Nevada stories. So I'm going to try and get involved a little bit there as we go.
And I want to
go
real
ahead.
quick point this out to our viewing audience is that, look, in the grand scope of things, I'm an old man who has kids and have been married, but I still am what would be considered, especially from what I've been told, is I'm still kind of a cool guy. You're a cool guy. We're cool guys. We're like still.
I'm the coolest guy I know.
You are.
Yeah.
And I've known a lot of you, but you're the coolest one. But that being said, public civics and local politics is actually really cool. And people need to understand that. Like, it's actually fun. It's actually important. And it's not boring. And it's something that every one of you guys should get involved in some capacity.
I agree.
Go to one meeting. That's all you do. One meeting a month and make that your focus. You don't have to do like my wife does and goes to 70 plus of them a month. She's a junkie. But that being said, go to one and see if you can make an impact in that one. Do public comment. Go up there and say, and pay attention to the stuff that they're doing, and then let people know about it. Talk about it. Make it part of your repertoire of things that you know.
Yeah, put it in your daily lexicon. Now, if that's for the introverted among you, if that's too much, and I'm not an introvert, do yourself a favor. Just go. Make it a fun thing to just go do. Go get a hamburger, whatever, coffee, then go. Try to introduce yourself to just one person. And I think what you'll find, which is pretty funny, is someone will be like, oh, well, who are you with or where do you work? And your answer should be, I just live here. Just interested in what's going on. You're going to learn a lot. You're going to learn a lot of how stuff just gets shoved through the system sometimes, or what people choose to fight about while they're there.
The people you vote for aren't used to having an audience.
Correct.
They're used to doing all of these things to empty rooms.
Yep.
And being able to just get away with stuff because no one's there to check them. And all you have to do is just be in the room with eyes.
That's it.
All you have to do is just put your eyes on them. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, maybe I should rethink that because I don't know who that person is. But even without being in the room, like, let's say you're next level introverted and you can't be in those type of public situations or don't want to be, all of them are online.
Right.
You can actually join their Zoom calls or go to their YouTube channels. You can actually do that, and they see from their computer screens that people are watching even from the computer screens, and you still get the experience of knowing what they're talking about, knowing what's going on in your local community, and being able to go, hey, I don't agree with that, or hey, they're doing a good job. Whatever the case may be, get involved. Put your fingers on the pulse of what's going on around you instead of complaining that you don't have any control at all.
It's very important. Yeah. And you're going to learn much more about what's really spoken about than anything that might have hit the nightly news highlight about initiative XYZ that got pushed through at 123 timeline, right?
Yep.
So, it should be fun. It should be really fun. Or it won't be fun at all, but I'm still going. So...
they're not always winners.
I usually try to make it inviting. Did I tell you I actually petitioned, just so it would be on public record, the city that I live in, for a petition to try and get plans to dig a moat around my house?
No.
They're like, yeah. They're like, wait.
I feel like I should have been the first person you told before even the city.
You want to do what? I'm like, I want a permit for a moat. Could you explain to me a moat? Is this like an addition to the building? Not really. It's an addition to the foundation around the outside, but within my property lines. It's a moat. Like a medieval moat? Like a medieval moat.
Precisely, yes.
I mean, water shortage stuff aside, like, what are you going to put in there? I'm like, fuck if I know. Alligators, piranhas. What do you put in moats? I'll figure it out.
That's my business at that point. I just need the permission to do it.
Then they realized I was serious. They were like, no, you cannot have a fucking moat in your district. And I was like, all right, well, I tried. And then I fucked off.
Like, I thought this was America.
Yeah.
I thought what happened to property
Like,
rights?
well, I believe I said, there goes the plans for the trebuchet as I like walked out the door. When it rains, it fucking pours, huh? But yeah. All right. Well, that's it for us then.
That's it for me.
Yeah. We'll see you guys soonish.
Yeah. Thank you for a fun evening of hijinks and talking nonsense and seriousness all rolled into one.
I love it. All right, friends. Next time.